Let me ask you something. What if everything in your life, your work, your health, your relationships, was operating at the highest possible level? Not perfect, but excellent. Excellence is not about talent, it's not about luck, it's a decision, a mindset, a commitment. And today, I'm going to show you exactly what it takes to make that commitment and why it may be the most powerful decision of your life. Fun step 1. Excellence is a habit, not a one-time act. Excellence is not something you stumble upon by accident or achieve in a single moment of brilliance. It's not the result of a grand gesture or a sudden burst of inspiration. Rather, it is forged in the small, repeated actions that most people overlook. It is found in the way you begin your morning, the way you organize your work, the way you speak to others, the way you respond under pressure, and the way you handle tasks, especially the ones that seem unimportant. It's easy to be excellent when everyone is watching or when the stakes are high, but real excellence reveals itself in the moments when no one's paying attention. It's in how you do the mundane, how you approach the routine, and how you execute the basics with precision, care, and pride. That's where character is built. That's where discipline is refined. People often wait for the big moment to prove themselves, but those big moments are simply the outcome of hundreds, even thousands of small decisions made in private. The truth is, how you do anything is how you do everything. If you cut corners when it's easy to do so, you'll cut corners when it matters most. Excellence demands that you show up fully, even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's inconvenient. Over time, these consistent actions shape your identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who doesn't settle, who doesn't coast, who doesn't just do enough to get by. You become the kind of person who takes pride in mastery, not because someone told you to, but because you've chosen to live by a higher standard. Habits are powerful because they remove the need for decision. When excellence becomes your habit, you no longer have to force yourself to work hard, to prepare thoroughly, or to go the extra mile. It becomes automatic. It becomes who you are. You don't need external motivation when your internal standards are set at excellence. Step 2, raise your standards. Every result in your life is a reflection of the standards you've chosen to live by. Your health, your finances, your relationships, your career, they all mirror the level of expectation you have set for yourself. When you tolerate average, you invite mediocrity. But when you raise your standards, when you draw a clear line and say, this is the minimum I will accept, everything begins to shift. Not instantly, but inevitably. Most people don't get what they want, they get what they're willing to tolerate. If you accept being tired all the time, being late, being disorganized, or living paycheck to paycheck, that becomes your normal. That becomes your standard. And here's the truth. Your subconscious mind is always working to keep your reality in alignment with what you believe you deserve. So if you want more success, more energy, more fulfillment, you have to expect more, not from the world, but from yourself. Raising your standards doesn't mean becoming unrealistic or harsh. It means refusing to settle. It means saying no to shortcuts and distractions. It means stepping up when it would be easier to step back. It's choosing to hold yourself to a higher code, not because someone else demands it, but because you know deep down you are capable of more. When you raise your standards, you start to change your habits, your language, your circle, and your focus. You stop making excuses. You stop blaming circumstances. You stop comparing yourself to people who aren't even aiming for the same level. You start setting new boundaries with your time and your energy. You begin to demand more of your environment. And the interesting thing is, when your standards go up, your behavior naturally follows. You don't have to push yourself as much. Your new identity starts to pull you forward. Standards are not about perfection. They are about alignment. They serve as the internal compass that guides your decisions, your actions, and your priorities. When something is out of alignment with your standards, you feel it. That tension is not a problem, it's feedback. It's an invitation to grow, to recalibrate, and to level up again. And every time you do, you send a message to yourself and the world, this is who I am now. Step 3, take 100% responsibility. Taking 100% responsibility for your life is one of the most empowering and liberating choices you can make. Yet it's also one of the hardest. It means giving up the comfort of blame. It means no longer pointing to your parents, your boss, the economy, your partner, or your past as the reason things are the way they are. It's about drawing a line in the sand and saying, from this moment forward, I own everything. My results, my failures, my growth, my future. Most people live in reaction. They respond to life as if they are victims of circumstance, always waiting for conditions to improve, for people to treat them better, for opportunities to come their way. But when you take full responsibility, you stop waiting, you start creating, you stop hoping, and start planning. You begin to see that the quality of your life is not determined by what happens to you, but by how you choose to respond to what happens. This mindset is not about guilt or shame. It's not about beating yourself up when things go wrong. It's about taking ownership. It's about recognizing that you always have a choice. How you think, how you act, how you interpret events, and what you do next. Responsibility is not a burden. It's a form of personal power. Because as long as you blame, you give your power away. You hand over the steering wheel of your life to someone else. When you take 100% responsibility, excuses become irrelevant. It doesn't matter if you had a tough start, if you were treated unfairly, or if you're facing challenges others don't understand. What matters is what you're going to do with it. How are you going to use it? How are you going to turn it into fuel? You become the architect of your own transformation. This principle also applies to your thoughts and emotions. Just because something triggers you doesn't mean it controls you. You are responsible for managing your reactions, for directing your focus, and for keeping yourself on track even when circumstances tempt you to drift. Emotional maturity is a key part of personal responsibility because it means refusing to let anyone else determine how you feel or how you show up. True responsibility also means being honest with yourself, brutally honest. It means looking at your current results, your body, your bank account, your relationships, your environment, and admitting this is my doing. Maybe not all of it, but enough of it that the path forward is in your hands. It's about refusing to be passive. It's about refusing to wait for someone to rescue you, fix it for you, or give you permission. When you stop shifting responsibility outward, you stop running from the truth. And that's where growth begins, because only when you own your situation fully can you begin to change it intentionally. Step 4, continuous learning and growth. The continuous learning and growth is not just a strategy, it's a mindset, a way of life adopted by people who are committed to excellence. In a world that's constantly evolving, staying still is the same as falling behind. What worked yesterday may not work tomorrow, and what you knew last year might already be outdated. The moment you believe you arrived or that you know enough, you begin to decline. That's because growth is not something you achieve once and check off a list. It's a daily discipline, an intentional effort to become just a little bit better than you were the day before. People who grow continuously aren't necessarily the smartest in the room. They're the most curious. They ask more questions. They seek feedback even when it's uncomfortable. They read, listen, watch, reflect. They don't just want to know more, they want to understand deeply. They don't fear what they don't know. They chase it because they understand that the greatest competitive advantage isn't talent or experience. It's the ability to adapt, to learn faster than the world is changing around them. Growth also requires humility. You have to be willing to admit you don't have all the answers. You have to be okay with being a beginner over and over again. That's why so many people avoid growth. It's uncomfortable. It forces you to confront your limitations, your blind spots, your bad habits. But it's in that discomfort that transformation happens. When you lean into it, you discover that what you once thought was your ceiling was actually just your current level of understanding. Learning isn't limited to books or formal education. It's in every challenge you face, every failure you experience, every conversation you have. Life is always teaching. You just have to be open to receiving the lesson. And real growth comes when you apply what you've learned. Knowledge is not power until it becomes action. The most successful people turn ideas into execution quickly. They don't just consume information, they implement, experiment, adjust, and repeat. Growth also has momentum. When you start to see progress, even in small ways, it fuels your confidence and expands your vision. You begin to expect more from yourself, and you stop settling for outdated versions of who you used to be. You realize that your potential isn't fixed, it's elastic. It stretches every time you challenge it. Those who commit to learning and growth don't just succeed, they evolve. They outgrow problems, outlearn competition, and outlast doubt. They become students of life, not because they have to, but because they can't imagine living any other way. Step 5, discipline is the bridge. Discipline is the invisible bridge that connects your goals to your results. It's the structure behind every success story, the backbone of every achievement that lasts. While motivation can get you started, discipline is what keeps you going when the excitement wears off, when the process becomes repetitive, and when the results don't show up as quickly as you hoped. It's doing the work not just when it's convenient, but especially when it's showing up day after day, regardless of mood, weather, distractions, or the opinions of others. Discipline is about making decisions based on commitment, not feelings. Feelings are unreliable, they rise and fall, they shift with the winds of comfort and resistance, but commitment stays grounded. And discipline is how you honor that commitment when no one's watching, when the pressure is low, and when the rewards aren't immediate. That's the gap most people fail to close. They know what they want, they dream about it, talk about it, even plan for it, but when it comes to doing the work, consistently they hesitate. Discipline is what turns that hesitation into action. It's not glamorous, it's not flashy, it doesn't always produce instant results. In fact, it often feels thankless in the beginning. But discipline compounds. It builds muscle over time, the mental muscle of persistence, focus, and resilience. Every time you follow through when it's easier to quit, you build trust with yourself. You send a message to your subconscious. I am someone who follows through. And that message begins to shape your identity. You no longer have to push yourself into action. It becomes who you are. Discipline also simplifies your life. It removes the burden of choice. When you're disciplined, you don't wake up and debate whether or not you'll follow your routine, whether or not you'll eat clean, whether or not you'll put in the work. You already decided. Your actions are no longer up for negotiation. That clarity creates freedom. Most people think discipline is restrictive, but in reality, it's what gives you power over your time, your energy, and your focus. You start to notice that people who seem lucky or effortlessly successful are simply the ones who've mastered the art of consistency. They don't rely on streaks of motivation. They rely on systems, habits, and standards enforced by discipline. They know that greatness is not a single act. It's a pattern, repeated until it becomes second nature. Discipline also builds emotional strength. It teaches you how to navigate discomfort, how to endure boredom, how to resist temptation. In a world that is constantly pulling for your attention and urging you toward distraction, discipline is what allows you to stay centered. It is an act of rebellion against mediocrity, and it is the ultimate expression of self-respect. Because when you are disciplined, you are not controlled by circumstance, you are led by purpose. Step 6, surround yourself with excellence. Who you spend time with shapes everything. From your beliefs to your habits, from your standards to your level of ambition. Surrounding yourself with excellence means intentionally choosing to be around people who challenge you, who inspire you, and who expect more from you than you may even expect from yourself. It's one of the most overlooked but powerful principles of success. The environment you immerse yourself in will either elevate you or erode you. There is no neutral ground. When you're around people who are driven, focused, and committed to growth, that energy is contagious. Excellence becomes the norm, not the exception. You see others pushing their limits, operating with discipline, refining their skills, and holding themselves to high standards, and you naturally rise to meet that level. You start to think bigger. You start to speak differently. You carry yourself with more intention. The bar gets raised and you adjust upward almost without realizing it. Conversely, when you spend time around people who make excuses, who gossip, procrastinate, complain, or settle for less, that influence wears on you just as powerfully. You begin to lower your expectations, compromise your values, and rationalize behavior that once would have been unacceptable. Over time, you start to resemble the very mediocrity you once swore you'd never become. This isn't about arrogance, it's about awareness. You become the average of the people you associate with most. If you want to change your results, start by changing your circle. Excellence isn't always comfortable. It often demands accountability, and people committed to it won't let you slide. They'll call you out. They'll expect effort, integrity, and follow through. They won't celebrate you for showing up. They'll push you to perform, to grow, and to deliver at your highest level. And while that might feel intense at first, it's a gift, because being surrounded by excellence exposes your blind spot. It accelerates your growth. It forces you to confront what you've been avoiding. That's why curating your environment is not just about avoiding negativity. It's about intentionally placing yourself in spaces that foster greatness. It means seeking mentors who operate at a higher level than you. It means joining communities, networks, or teams where excellence is baked into the culture. It means removing yourself from toxic relationships, even if they're familiar, and leaning into environments that stretch you, challenge you, and elevate you. Your environment will either reinforce your excuses or reinforce your evolution. When you surround yourself with people who are committed to progress, who are constantly learning, striving, building, and serving, you develop a deeper sense of what's possible. You start seeing excellence not as something rare, but as something expected. You witness firsthand what's required and you begin to model it. Not just in moments of pressure, but in the everyday choices and disciplines that define long-term success. So now the choice is yours. You can go back to life as usual, doing what's comfortable, settling for good enough, waiting for the right time, or you can draw the line. You can raise the bar. You can make the decision that from this moment forward, you will no longer tolerate anything less than excellence from your thoughts, your habits, your circle, and your actions. Excellence is not a gift. It's not reserved for the chosen few, and it's a commitment available to anyone who's willing to pay the price in focus, in effort, in consistency. And if you make that commitment genuinely, fully, unapologetically, you won't just change what you do, you'll change who you are. Because in the end, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you rise to the level of your standards. So raise them, hold them, live by them, and the life you truly want will rise to meet you.